In today's show, if you're like me and want to place a Melbourne Cup bet but have no idea what to look for, we've got you covered. Racing expert Hayden King takes us through everything there is to know about backing the winner. Welcome to the West Sports Show. My name's Chris Robinson, filling in for the great Glenn Quartermain, who wanted to make sure he was in tip-top shape for a big day watching the Melbourne Cup. But we've got you covered for the big race. So the man who knows how to pick a winner in the West racing rider, Hayden King. Hayden, welcome to the show.
Robbo, good to be with you.
Now, let me prime you with this, mate. 20 years ago, 2005, Maccabi Diva wins the first and only horse to win 3 straight Melbourne Cups. 10 years ago, in 2015, Michelle Payne wins on Prince of Penzance, the only female rider. Are we due for another history-making Melbourne Cup this time around?
Well, perhaps, and you touch on a couple of key components there. Maccabi Diva won 3 in a row, and she got in on a quite low handicap considering she only carried 58 kilos in that last edition. Now, this year, Alriff has never won a Melbourne Cup, but he comes in with 59 kilos and he's going to have to break all kinds of records, rewrite decades of history to win the race. And we don't have last year's champion of the race, so we won't have a repeat winner. Knight's Choice, unfortunately, not there this year. But we also have that element where we could have a female rider successful with Jamie Mellon chasing her first Melbourne Cup, and she partners one of the real live chances in Half Yours.
Yeah, quite extraordinary to have the husband-wife pairing in the same race. Mate, let's talk about the conditions first of all, because we're a day out as we record this on Monday afternoon. We're a day out from the great race. Looks like it's absolutely bucketed down in Melbourne today and might be again tomorrow. What can you tell us the latest on the forecast?
Yeah, it's been a deluge. It's been teeming down. They've got about 30 mils and the track right now is a soft 7. Some people say it could dip into that heavy 8 range tomorrow. I've heard other people say it could be as good as a soft 6, but it's going to be pretty damp underfoot. So that's one component that form students are going to be very cautious and circumspect of, how sodden the track is underfoot. And for those uninitiated, the track and how wet it is plays an intense variable in who wins the race. People might not understand that. You go for a run, it's wet, well, you might go a bit slower, but it actually really affects these horses. We have wet trackers that go really well when the conditions are soft underfoot and others that can only go on a hard deck.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of your tips, I'm really interested in your process in terms of doing the form guide, coming up with who you think is a winner. So obviously, as you say there, the weather and the conditions plays a significant part in that. How have you sort of, without giving away who you're going to back just at this stage, how have you sort of factored that in, and what other stuff do you give weight to and not give weight to when you're considering who's going to win?
I think the most important thing when analysing a race is the speed map, and unfortunately that is an unanswerable question, particularly in the Melbourne Cup, because you've got 24 horses, so many different dynamics, horses hailing from all around the world. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Horses do have their predicted racing style, but in these races where we're racing for $10 million, people often throw caution into the wind and funky things can happen. Sure. You could anticipate a slow tempo, they go out fast because someone throws a cat amongst the pigeons, so it can really change. I think that's the most important part, because if you're up front on a slow speed, you're going to be able to dash home quicker than the rest, but if they go really hard, you're better off sitting out the back and smoking the pipe and having the final shot. So that's the first thing to consider. Sectional data is something I place a high value on. If you are going out hard, you're not going to have as much in the tank in the end, and that's something you can consider from a previous race heading into this one. Whereas another example of if you've come home in really quick sectionals from the previous race and you've had that red light flashing above your head, it's a sign of a coming winner. So that's something to also consider. And then also other things like jockey changes. Is there a big race hoop that gets on a man of the moment, so to speak? So there are so many different things you can place emphasis on, but most of all, I just think good horses run fast, and times are something I place the highest impact on alongside that speed map.
Sure. Have you had much success in Melbourne Cups over the years on the punt, and what are some of your fondest memories of the big one?
It's been a bit of a hoodoo race for me.
Okay. Not a great thing to say as we lean on your wisdom here.
No, but I'm due, so that's what I'm
absolutely
thinking.
due,
That's the mindset I'm adopting. I think about Actually, I was in my year 5 sweepstakes when I had a Mirror-Cane. That was probably the first time
2010?
That was the first time I really got any kind of impact. And then I followed it up a couple of years later with Green Moon.
Okay. I love how you guys had sweepstakes in year 5.
I organised it and everyone thought I was rorting because I got the winner. But I wouldn't have even picked him even if I had. So Green Moon 2012. But in terms of a favourite winner, there was that patch between 2002, 2005, and from a WA perspective, Media Puzzle in 2002 for Damien Oliver was particularly poignant and had that sentimental value when there was not a dry eye in the house. Then Maccabi Divas 3 in a row. My interest probably peaked immediately preceding that when we had Delta Blues went in 2006, Efficient backed up off the Derby 2007, Viewed, who won that soul-stirring struggle with Bauer 2008, and then shocking defeating Crime Scene backing up over only a few days after winning the Lexus. So that was the time in my life when the race was the most magical. I was just a young kid and absorbing that kind of shaped who I am in terms of a Melbourne Cup enjoyer and also a horse racing enthusiast. So that kind of part of my life was really what shaped what I do now.
How far back can you go year-wise? If I say a year, how far back can you go in terms of who won the Melbourne Cup that year? Where can you go back into the 90s, 80s kind of areas, or is that starting to stretch it?
Consecutively, it would be around the turn of the century, but obviously Far Lap in the early 1930s. Archer won the first couple. Gold and Black beating Reckless was particularly interesting one because Reckless had gone and dominated all the other cups everywhere else. That was 1977, and then Kiwi for Jimmy Cassidy, 1983. Vintage Crop was an important winner because he was the first international in 1993. So, yeah, I reckon I could rattle off a good last 25, 26 or so, but aside from that, they're a bit patchy.
Okay, well, hopefully we get a good highlight one again this year. We'll get to your tips in a moment, but first, let's hear from our good friend David Short at Tab Touch.
Shorty's tips.
Shorty, welcome. Melbourne Cup Day is here again, and it's going to be a wet one this year.
Yeah, g'day, Robbo. Nice to be with you. It is. At this stage, we're dealing with a rain-affected surface, and there's potential for more rain on the day, which will chop it up a little bit. So we're potentially looking for horses that can handle a little bit of rain on the surface.
So given the conditions, who is your top tip for Tuesday?
I'm teaming up with number 24, Valiant King. He was an excellent performance in the Caulfield Cup, charged home from a long way back. He looks set to peak on Tuesday. Around it, another of the horses that was placed in the Caulfield Cup, River of Stars, likes a wet track. And the super talented European stay, number 1, Al Rifa, comes in with great form, but has to lump the 59 kilos. That'll be the challenge there.
For those who like to live dangerously, give us a roughie, a long shot.
Yeah, I always have money on the Japanese stayers when they come to Australia. They've got a great record. Last year we threw out Warp Speed as our roughie. It was very close as a $51 chance. So I'm hoping for something similar with Chevalier Rose, horse number 5 in the Cup this year. The rain-affected surface is a small query for this horse. So the less rain, the better. But it certainly comes with really good credentials, and going on what we've seen over the last 2 decades with Japanese stayers, well worth a little play at the big odds.
So your top 4 numbers are?
We're going with 24, 21, 1 and 5. So a couple at the bottom and then a couple at the top. 24, 21, 1 and 5. Fingers crossed for a big Melbourne Cup day.
Head on over to Tab Touch to make your selections. Of course, gamble responsibly. David Short, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers, Robbo.
All right, so the moment of truth, Hayden, your tips. So you've got a first, second and third. Let's count this backwards. So your choice for finishing third in the Melbourne Cup is who and why?
Chevalier Rose. Now, this Japanese horse, he comes in at long odds. He's about 50 to 1, but he will stay the trip. We know that. He has experience over 3,600 metres, the Stayers Stakes in Japan end of last year. That was November last year. And he hasn't won since, and he's not really got near the mark. He's an 8-year-old now. He's not getting any younger, but you just know what you're going to get with him. And Damien Lane jumps aboard. He's developed this connection with the Japanese people and horses over the last 6 or so years, including winning the Cox Plate and the Caulfield Cup on Lise Grachero and Murder Glass. This could complete his trilogy. And I think this horse has a long shot chance in the race. I'm just banking on the Japanese getting this horse right at the right time. And you heard that from Shorttey with Warp Speed last year, who was so competitive and rallied to the cause on the biggest day. I think Chevalier Rose could do the same.
$41 with our friends at Tab Touch. Your choice for second?
Buckaroo. He brings some real class to the race, and over the last 2 decades, we've seen so many horses come through that Cox Plate form line, not necessarily even winners, but they've come through that Cox Plate form line. It's our biggest weight for age race, which means the best horses get in on level circumstances, which mean the best horses often win. Now, he comes into this race under handicap conditions, and although he's up in the weights, he actually won't be leading the weights because we've got the presence of another Irish horse who won the Irish St. Leger last start. But he gets, although he has to lug that impost, that class edge could come to the fore. My only query on him is if he stays the 2 miles. Mm-hmm. I've not quite been convinced of that so far, but that permanency of the edge he's got in terms of talent, well, I think that's going to carry him a long way. So Buckaroo is certainly a chance.
$10 the latest price for Buckaroo. And your winner, and why?
That horse I just spoke about, Al Riffer. Now, that is the premium form line. Irish St. Leger winner last start, only a couple of months ago, and he decimated them, trounced them, 4 lengths on the line. The Irish St. Leger is a really big deal at the Curragh. They go 1 mile, 6 furlongs, which is 2,800 metres for us. Okay. So it is a rigorous test, and so often we see these internationals come to the fore because their staying ranks, candidly, are better than our Australian staying ranks. He deserves the 59 kilos he's got to carry, and Gate 9 team's going to make it a bit tougher. But Mark Zahra, we've seen him a couple of times in the last 3 years. He's been able to produce miracles on the big day, and if he gives this horse a half-decent ride, I think Al Riffer is going to take so much beating. I could see him getting 3 wide with cover, potentially on the back of Maidan, James McDonald's ride, the Frankel horse. So if he gets into that position, I think he'll be involved at the right time. And under those circumstances, I think he can get over them.
So you talked about Mark Zahra there. So Gold Trip in 2022, without a fight, 2023. He can make it 3 Melbourne Cup wins in a 4-year span, which only Glenn Boss has done, those Makybe Diva rides, as we mentioned before. What would a win here mean for his legacy, and why has he been so good at getting the best out of the 3,200?
It makes him a Melbourne Cup great, and this is the race that transcends racing. It's the race that everyone stops at midday West Australian time and they watch this race. They don't have any interest in racing. I had a message on my phone just before asking me what makes me a horse racing expert, asking me for tips.
Yeah, who do I back?
Yeah, exactly. And it makes him recognisable in the public sphere. It'll carry him for the rest of his days, and it's something that's so treasured with so many people that it'll make him a great of both racing but the Melbourne Cup. And we see that with Kerrin McEvoy, who's won 3 Melbourne Cups. He rides absurd tomorrow. Now, he won firstly with Brew 25 years ago, and then he won with Al Mandam not so long ago, and another success quickly followed that. But that's the impact he's had. He's got that big race rider reputation, and it's led to opportunities overseas. He's ridden over there to great effect as well. So it could open the door for Mark potentially to get even greater opportunities, and this is another big moment in his career.
And we were talking off air about the call of the card today. Can you sort of explain what that is and the amount of weight that's been put behind Al Riffer in that today?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The call of the card is essentially a group of bookies all come together on the Monday before the Cup, and they allow you to place significant bets. They offer prices they see suitable. Often it's a better price than you're getting in the public sphere, and it's harder to get bets on for substantial amounts. So all the professional punters, they were there today, and they're looking to get set for as much as they can. And they started with Al Riffer, and a group of people from EasyGo, a tech company in Melbourne, they've come along and they've had $500,000 on Al Riffer at $8. So they're up to win a profit of $3.5 million. They'll get $4 million back. It's unheard of. And then there were heaps of other bets as well. Wolfden got on to win $1 million. The people who own Al Riffer, they've recently purchased him Australian Bloodstock. They've got $200,000 on him at $7.50. Others got $150,000 at $7.50. The support behind this horse, in my experience with the call of the card, is pretty unprecedented. And it was all day. Of course, there's 23 other horses. Everyone's got an opinion. It's relentless support all round. But Al Riffer's just been off the boards.
Yeah, that is some crazy, crazy figures that we're talking about there. So I don't know if you noticed this, but you've gone the Jackson 5 strategy with your tipping here. ABC Easy's 1, 2, 3. Tip number 1, Al Riffa starts with A. Number 2, Buckaroo starts with B. Number 3, Chevalier Row starts with C.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Easy's ABC. Give us a roughie. For someone who likes to have a bit of a long shot, Glenn Quartermain, our esteemed host, is certainly in that category. Who do you like as an outsider?
I've tipped Further as my best roughie. I just think he's the horse with the most scope. He's unexposed, enters the race as a 3-4-year-old, depending on the system which you operate, Southern or Northern Hemisphere. Comes from Andrew Balding's yard. He's one of the big trainers over there in the UK. And I just feel if this horse is creeping under people's guards, considering his age and his lack of exposure, he could be the one that bobs up tomorrow. So I'm keeping him on side.
Fantastic. Well, that's obviously Flemington, midday WA time tomorrow. And remember, you win some, you lose some more. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Hayden, thanks so much for joining us, mate. It was great getting some of your insights, and fingers crossed that this is your year for a collect.
My pleasure. Good luck, punters.
And remember, you can head to thewest.com.au for all the wash-up, and you can also watch or listen to our podcast through YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll chat to you next time.